My name is Jameson, and let me be clear right from the start: when your ex-wife reaches out after 15 years of silence and says, "We need to talk," you better brace yourself, because whatever follows won't be light, and it certainly won't be some harmless stroll down memory lane. When someone who once broke your world without hesitation suddenly appears with those words, there's only one logical outcome: more heartache. The second I saw her message, I felt it tightness in my chest, like something deep inside me was being pulled loose. I didn't even have to open it. I already knew. When someone who's already left you in pieces reappears, it's rarely to offer closure or peace. No, they usually return bearing truths you're not ready to face, but somehow know you must. And that's exactly where this story starts. 15 years ago, I was a married man. We had a beautiful little boy who had just turned 3. At the same time, I was neck deep in a scientific breakthrough that demanded every ounce of my energy. I was part of a small dedicated team working on a system to detect plastic microparticles in human blood, technology that could potentially change lives, but that meant long hours, extended trips away from home, and endless days in the lab. Sometimes I'd be gone for weeks, months, even chasing deadlines and scraping together funding. I didn't hide any of it from Valentina, my wife. I sat her down more than once and poured my heart out, explaining how important this project was, not just to me, but to us, to our future. Every time she nodded, said she understood, and encouraged me to keep going, and I believed her. Then, out of nowhere, everything collapsed. A man I'd never seen before walked into my lab one day. He introduced himself as Valentina's attorney. The look on my colleagues' faces as he asked to speak with me privately still haunts me. He handed me a sealed envelope. Inside were the divorce papers. Just like that, I was in shock. My brain couldn't compute the word divorce. I left everything behind and rushed home, not even sure what I would say. I just knew I had to talk to her to get some clarity. When I walked through the door, there she was, sitting calmly on the couch. I pleaded with her to explain, to talk it through. I reminded her that even while buried in work, I never abandoned my responsibilities. I always ensured the bills were paid, the house kept up, and our son provided for. But she didn't flinch. She didn't show the slightest emotion. All she said was, "From now on, speak to my lawyer." That sentence didn't just break my heart, it shattered my entire understanding of the life I thought we had. I was convinced she was just overwhelmed, maybe angry. I refused to sign the papers, still hoping to find a way back, but she wasn't interested. She took the matter straight to court, and that's when the real nightmare began. Not only did she stand by her decision, she went further, twisting our story into something I barely recognized. In court, she portrayed me as a neglectful husband, a man who abandoned his family to bury himself in work. She left out every sacrifice, every call, every wire transfer, every night I spent chasing something that I thought would build a better life for all of us. None of that mattered. The court didn't care for complexities or gray areas. She won. She walked away with full custody of our son and the house. I was left with nothing but the clothes I had packed and the lab, which became my only refuge. I moved into the research facility full-time. It wasn't just a place to work anymore, it was the only place I could exist. Overnight, my role as a father became reduced to a legal schedule. I went from being there every day to a stranger with restricted access. But the part that cut deepest: despite being pushed out of my own home, I was still legally bound to pay child support every month like clockwork. The irony crushed me. She'd ended the marriage, blamed me for being too focused on work, yet she still wanted the money that very work brought in, and the legal system backed her up without hesitation. My passion project, the very thing that had consumed my time and savings, was now the only thing I had left to hold on to. At the time of the divorce, the project was teetering. We were running low on funds. Every failure in the lab wasn't just a scientific setback, it cost us dearly. Each failed attempt nudged us closer to collapse. There were days I stared into the mirror and didn't recognize myself. Days I wanted to walk away from everything, but my team and a few close family members kept me standing. They refused to let me unravel. They reminded me that what we were building still had meaning, that my life still had meaning, and somewhere inside I believed them. I stopped trying to make sense of why she left. I quit digging for reasons. Instead, I funneled every ounce of heartbreak, fury, and confusion into that project, but doing so came at a cost. I closed myself off in the world. I didn't date, I didn't trust, didn't let anyone get close. The idea of being vulnerable again terrified me. Even so, I never neglected my duties. No matter how bad things got, I made sure the child support arrived on time, sometimes borrowing money, sometimes stretching my last few dollars. It didn't matter how hard it was, that was still my son. Even if she made seeing him nearly impossible, even if she poisoned his ears with lies about the kind of man I was, I couldn't turn my back on him. I refused to. I had already lost nearly everything: my home, my marriage, and a huge part of who I used to be. But there was one thing: I wasn't going to let her destroy my purpose. If I gave up on the work I'd sacrificed so much for, then all that suffering would truly have meant nothing. So I kept going, inch by inch, through the uncertainty, alone in the dark. Then one day, after countless failures and sleepless nights, something shifted. The technology we'd spent years developing finally started producing reliable, accurate results. It could detect microplastics in the bloodstream faster and at a fraction the cost of anything that existed before. We ran every test imaginable, different variables, different samples, different conditions, and every time it worked. I still remember the exact moment we realized we had achieved what once felt impossible. I didn't cry, not because I wasn't moved, but because I had nothing left to cry with. I was spent. Word got out quickly. First, the medical research community took notice, then came write-ups in journals and online publications. Not long after, a well-known pharmaceutical company reached out. They sent their own team, conducted independent evaluations, and eventually presented an offer to purchase the entire system. It was life-changing. The deal was massive. For the first time in over a decade, I could breathe. I had financial stability. I no longer needed to sleep in a lab or worry about scraping together rent. I could finally imagine a life that wasn't tethered to survival. I began to see the possibility of living, not just working. But just as the dust began to settle, Valentina, my ex-wife, somehow caught wind of the buyout. We hadn't spoken beyond legal necessities in years. The only connection that remained was the regular child support I sent without fail. Then came the next blow, a formal letter from her attorney. She wanted more support, more money. Once again, the system that was supposed to be just and balanced showed exactly where its loyalties lay. Without hesitation, the court ruled in her favor. No one asked how I had managed all these years. No one cared that I had never missed a payment. It didn't matter that I had been left with nothing while she took everything. To them, I was a man. She was the mother. End of story. So I complied. I always did. Despite my newfound success and the recognition tied to my name, I still couldn't free myself from the weight of that past. The moment the new payments were finalized, I found myself thinking about something I had long buried. Companionship. Not marriage. That word still triggered something uneasy in me. But connection, warmth, presence. I was tired of silence, of eating alone, of waking up to nothing but the hum of machines and an empty room. I didn't need fireworks. I just wanted someone to talk to share quiet mornings with, to feel human again. So cautiously, I began opening myself up, slowly, with care. And eventually I met someone. She was soft-spoken, kind, and carried a calming energy I didn't know I needed. Being around her felt like standing in the sun after years of cold. She didn't push. She didn't ask me to bear more than I was ready for. From the beginning, I was honest. I wasn't looking for a wedding ring or another house with a white picket fence. To my surprise, she understood. We built something quiet, steady, peaceful. For the first time in what felt like forever, I could walk through the door and not feel like I was walking into a battlefield. It didn't erase what had come before, but it started to soothe the bruises that still lingered. While I tried to move forward, I also kept reaching out to my son. I sent messages, called when I could, invited him to spend weekends with me. But Valentina, she made it nearly impossible. She filled his head with things I never said and stories that weren't true. She painted me as a villain of a story I had never even written. And the worst part? He believed her, or at least part of him did. Every time we talked, I could see in his eyes that flicker of doubt, that silent question he was too afraid to ask. Like he was trying to reconcile two versions of his father. The one his mother described, and the one standing in front of him. I tried to show him in every way I could that I was here, that I never walked away. But it was like screaming through glass. He could see me, hear me, but something always muffled the truth. He'll be 18 soon. And with that, my financial obligation, at least in the eyes of the court, will finally end. Not because I'm unwilling to support him, I always have, I always will, but because for too long that obligation was used as a weapon against me. Valentina turned it into leverage, something to twist and manipulate to her benefit. It's hard to put into words what that kind of manipulation does to a person. No one ever asked what I was going through. The system didn't care. It just demanded, and I delivered. Even when I was broke. Even when I had nothing left to give. Now here I am, still trying to rebuild piece by piece, still hoping that one day my son will see things clearly, that he'll recognize the man I truly am, not the version someone else designed for him. And then out of nowhere, 15 years after our divorce, I got a message from Valentina. A simple one: we need to talk. Immediately my mind went into overdrive. Was our son hurt? Was she sick? Was someone dead? The message offered no answers, just tension. I wanted to ignore it. Every part of me screamed not to get involved. But there was something reflexive in the way I responded, like old muscle memory. Against my better judgment, I picked up the phone and called her. "What's going on?" I asked. She didn't give me a straight answer, just said something vague. "It's better if we talk face to face." Her voice, it caught me off guard. It was softer than I remembered. Calmer, like she was reaching out not as a fighter, but as someone ready to make peace. I didn't know what to believe. But there was one reason I couldn't walk away from that message, our son. No matter what history Valentina and I had, no matter how deep the wounds went, if this was about him, I had to be there. So despite every instinct telling me to run the other way, I agreed to meet her. I agreed to meet her. I wasn't sure what I was walking into, but I needed answers. When I stepped into Valentina's home, the energy was different. For the first time in over a decade, she welcomed me like an old friend, not an enemy. Her voice was soft, her smile polite. She offered me food, something to drink. I declined. I didn't come for pleasantries. I wanted to know why she asked me there after all these years. We sat down. For a moment, she just looked at me, like she was trying to collect her thoughts, or maybe working up the courage to say what had been weighing on her. Then she began to speak. And nothing she said was what I expected. She opened up about our marriage, how my constant absence made her feel invisible. She said it felt like I had emotionally checked out. Looking back, I understand how my work obsession hurt her, but it wasn't the whole picture. She went on to explain that at some point she convinced herself I was cheating. She had no proof, just a gut feeling twisted by insecurity and resentment. And instead of confronting me, she let that suspicion fester. That's when she began her own affair. It didn't just happen once. It became a full-on relationship. And by the time she realized I hadn't betrayed her, that I had been working long hours not seeing someone else, it was already too late. She was in too deep. That's when she made the decision to end our marriage. She confessed the man she left me for turned out to be a nightmare. Controlling, violent. But she felt she had burned the bridge behind her. There was no coming back. Then, with tears in her eyes, she told me something else. She was sick. She had cancer. It was terminal. And she didn't want to leave this world without telling me the truth. Her affair, the divorce, the pain she caused. She owned all of it. She said it was her fault, that I did nothing wrong, that she ruined everything. And there I was, sitting across from the woman who had once meant everything to me, hearing her admit that she was the reason for all the destruction. She asked for forgiveness. She said she wanted to let go of the guilt before it was too late. But I didn't know how to give her that. All I could think about was the loneliness, the heartbreak, the years I spent piecing my life back together after she shattered it. I looked her in the eye and asked, "Did you ever stop to think what this did to our son? What it did to me? You blew up our lives without a second thought. You never considered the wreckage you left behind." I didn't care that she was sick. I didn't care that she regretted it. I didn't care that she only had a little time left. None of that erased what she had done. If it weren't for the few people who encouraged me when I was at rock bottom, who reminded me to keep going, I might not have made it out of that darkness. I could have lost myself completely. When I got home that night, I sat at the edge of my bed and just unraveled. For 15 years, I carried this quiet shame, this unspoken belief that I had failed her, that I had ruined our marriage because she never gave me the truth. Just silence, distance, and blame. And now, after all these years, I finally knew what really happened. It was her. She betrayed our vows. She tore our family apart. And even after all that, I can't say I felt lighter. You'd think hearing the truth would bring peace. But it didn't. It just confirmed what I feared, that the pain I endured was never an accident. It was a result of her choices. And no, I don't forgive her. Not now. Maybe never. People love to talk about forgiveness like it's a simple thing, like you just flip a switch and let go. But if you've ever had your life dismantled by someone you trusted, if they show up years later with an apology drowning in regret, you know it's not that easy. Forgiveness costs something, and sometimes the wound is just too deep. All I care about now is my son. I'm still trying to rebuild something with him, to be a part of his life, even if it's late in the game. I know Valentina poisoned his mind against me. I can see it in his eyes, the doubt, the hesitance. He hears two versions of his father, and he's trying to figure out which one to believe. But he's nearly 18 now, old enough to start asking real questions. Old enough to seek his own truth. That's where my focus is. If you're listening to this and expecting a clean moral or a tidy ending, you won't find one here. Life doesn't always reward the ones who were wronged. Sometimes the person who caused the most damage walks away with the house, the child, and the story that paints them as a victim. But at least I survived it. I didn't let it kill me. So here's my advice from one man who's lived through it. Pray. Pray hard that you don't marry the wrong person. Because the wrong partner isn't just a bad decision. It's a lifelong sentence. One that keeps punishing you long after they're gone. If my story resonated with you, consider sharing it and supporting the channel. It means more than you know. So guys, if you all liked today's story, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon. Thank you for watching.